Om Namo Bhagavate Narasimhaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Narasimhaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Narasimhaya. Namaste Tejase Avir Avir Bhava Vajra Naka Vajra Dangsha Kama Shayan Randhaya Randhaya Tamograsa Grasa Om Swaha Abhayam Abhayam Atmani Bhuyashta Om Shram Vagisha Yasya Vadane Lakshmiya Yasya Chavakshasi Yasyaste hridaye sangvit Tam nrsimhamaham bhaje. Shri Nrsimha Jai Nrsimha Jai Jai Nrsimha. Prahladesha Jaya Padma Mukha Padma Bringha. I joined this movement or I was allowed to join in Bhaktivedanta Mana, a centre of our society just outside London in England. It's a very big temple room, and there are many pictures, paintings on the walls. One was a huge painting of Nrsimhadev killing Hiranyakashipu. The famous scene of the Lord being intensely angry, ripping out the intestines of Hiranyakashipu, with blood spattering everywhere, and the intestines of Hiranyakashipu wrapped around the neck of Nrsimha like a garland, and Hiranyakashipu looking positively uncomfortable. So before this painting was put on the wall, one of our senior devotees expressed much reservation about putting it in the temple room at all. I think probably it's better if the baby is taken outside. Just kindly request you to I think if everyone moves in, that'll be better, because more people are coming also. So one of our devotees had suggested not placing this picture on the wall at all, because apart from our devotees, many different kinds of people would come just to visit and see out of curiosity. And there was some fear that this scene would be much misunderstood and misinterpreted. So, of course in the Western countries people have some idea of God, but their idea of God doesn't coalesce with the scene of Nrsimha ripping out the intestines of Hiranyakashipu. Because it's thought that, well, God is very kind and very good and very loving, so if a Westerner comes and sees this painting and asks, what's this? And you say, well, this is God. Yeah. They may be shocked. And actually in America once, in a court case against our movement, one lawyer to prove that our movement is bogus, he showed a painting, he brought a picture of Nrsimhadev ripping apart Hiranyakashipu and said, you see, they believe this is God. That proves that they're bogus. So certainly God is very sweet and very kind, but His sweetness and kindness is not so obviously expressed in His ripping Hiranyakashipu. pieces. In Nrsimha Leela, anger and fear are prominent. In this material world, we take shelter of God because this whole material world is full of anger and fear. Of course, we have to understand that Nrsimhadev didn't stop being... Lord Vishnu in the form of Nrsimha didn't stop being good. When Lord Vishnu appears as Nrsimha, it's not that he's bad, but his anger, which induces the fear in Hiranyakashipu, that anger is another feature of the love of Nrsimhadev. His anger at Hiranyakashipu is because of his love for Prahlad. And actually he loves Hiranyakashipu also. God loves everyone. But Hiranyakashipu qualified for receiving the love of Nrsimhadev in a different way. Actually Hiranyakashipu is extremely fortunate. There's the classic ISKCON painting of Nrsimhadev ripping to pieces Hiranyakashipu. So I hope you're all familiar with that. We don't have that painting here. It's on the altar, very small, but if you look at that carefully, you'll see how Nrsimha's eyes extremely angrily are fully focused on Hiranyakashipu. And definitely Hiranyakashipu is not thinking of anything. Certainly Hiranyakashipu is not thinking of anything else but Nrsimha. So Hiranyakashipu is very fortunate that the Supreme Lord's whole attention is fully on him. Lord Vishnu is the Lord of everything and of everyone. But when he's killing Hiranyakashipu, his attention is not on everything and everyone, his attention is on Hiranyakashipu. Of course he's not very happy with Hiranyakashipu. He's extremely angry with him for having so severely mistreated his devotee Prahlad. But the intensity of the exchange between Nrsimha and Hiranyakashipu, that has been praised by Narada Muni. That is such intense concentration. Nrsimha is intensely concentrated on Hiranyakashipu, and Hiranyakashipu is intensely concentrated on Nrsimha. So again, the underlying basis of it all is love. That the anger of Nrsimha is because of his love for Prahlad. There's a certain class of sadhu, they cultivate tolerating everything, not being angry at anything, totally detached. They try to be detached from everything. But devotees are not like that. Devotees are detached from everything material, but they are intensely attached to Krishna, and therefore they become angry at the people who are the people who are envious of Krishna. So that is an expression of the devotees' love for Krishna, that they don't like to see Krishna blasphemed. And actually the people who tolerate everything, including blasphemy of Krishna, they're just demons, that's all. The impersonalists who become detached from everything, including they're detached from Krishna, they get the same result as the demons who are killed by Krishna, which is merging into the impersonal Brahman. So the anger of Hanuman in burning Lanka is much more laudable than the detachment of someone who has no attachment to Krishna. Now of course in general, anger and fear, these are not considered very good qualities. Lord Krishna himself states in Bhagavad Gita, Vita raga bhaya krodham manmaya, what is it? Bahavo jnana tapasa putamad bhavam agataha. He states that many persons, being freed from attachment, fear and anger, and being absorbed in me, taking shelter of me, they became purified by knowledge and austerities, and thus they came to me. So attachment, fear and anger, these are contaminations which have to be overcome. But attachment, fear and anger based on one's own sense gratification, that is material. But the attachment to Krishna, that is spiritual. And Krishna's anger, or the anger of his devotees, is spiritual, because it's for the sake of, the devotee's anger is for the sake of serving Krishna, and the Supreme Lord's anger is for the sake of protecting his devotees. So everything a demon does, even his so-called compassion and goodness, it's all bad. If one has no attachment for Krishna, it's all bad. And it's all based on envy of others. But even a devotee's anger, or the anger of the Supreme Lord, that is all good. Demons are by nature, they're very hard-hearted and cold. And they, really severe demons like Hiranyakashipu, for them it's just normal to be angry and to torture others. They take pleasure in seeing others unhappy. They take pleasure in showing their power and seeing others afraid of them. They're simply interested in dominating others. So Hiranyakashipu was a typical demon in this category. He was able to fulfill his ambition of dominating over the whole universe. When someone dominates others, then the other people become very submissive to him. And we see that in day-to-day life, just like in the office. There is a junior and a senior, and the junior is submissive to the senior. And the junior acts very humbly towards the senior. Not because he likes the senior, he probably hates him, but he has to behave like that, otherwise he'll lose his job. So the junior acts very respectfully toward the senior, but there's no love there. And the senior is satisfied to see, yes, they're respecting me properly. So you might see someone who's very humble and very polite, and you think, oh, they're very well behaved. But they're just like that out of fear. It's not that they have the inherent good quality. That's why the saying is there that power corrupts. Because you see someone, they're in a very low position and they're very humble and well behaved, and you give them power and they become like a little Hiranyakashipu. They mistreat others. So that's why the saying is there, power corrupts. But actually it's not true. The person was already corrupt by nature, but just he didn't have the opportunity to, there was no outlet for that. There was no opportunity for him to show the nastiness which is actually in his heart. Of course, among materialistic and demoniac people, there may be some love also. Just like we see that Hiranyakashipu was very affectionate toward Prahlad, until he found out that Prahlad was a devotee of Vishnu. But Hiranyakashipu's natural tendency was to love Prahlad. But we can see that that wasn't real love, because as soon as Hiranyakashipu found out that Prahlad, as soon as Hiranyakashipu found out that Prahlad was a devotee of Vishnu, the love of Hiranyakashipu toward Prahlad changed so drastically that he wanted to kill Prahlad. He didn't like Prahlad, because if Prahlad is a devotee of Vishnu, that means that he's no longer dominated by Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu wanted to dominate everyone. So Hiranyakashipu didn't really love his son, but he just liked to, he expressed some affection toward him because Prahlad was dominated by him. So the desire to dominate others, that's a manifestation of one's envy toward them, or dvesha, bad feeling toward them. So in this material world, everyone is either dominating or dominated. Some people we dominate, and some people we are dominated by. And it's all simply an expression of bad feeling towards others, even if sometimes it's apparently expressed as good feeling. And severe demons like Hiranyakashipu, they just want to crush others. And Hiranyakashipu, he felt himself to be very successful, because in this material world, as I was saying, everyone is dominating some people and dominated by others. But Hiranyakashipu had he'd made himself into such a position that he dominated everyone and no one dominated him. He wasn't afraid of anyone. He wasn't afraid of death even. He thought that there was no cause for fear for him. He was wrong. When Narasimhadev ripped him to pieces, then Hiranyakashipu, he understood what fear was. No one in this material world can become free from fear. And even though Hiranyakashipu thought he was free from fear, he experienced the most intense fear. Can you imagine? It's just like there are so many fears in this material world. Fear of, you can be afraid of electric shock, or afraid of being hit by lightning, or afraid of being hit by a truck. If you have an electric shock, it's like 220 volts. If you get two lines joined together, you get 440 volts, twice as heavy. What if you got all the energy of the universe directed against you? All the energy of all the universe is directed against you. That's what Hiranyakashipu had. All the power in the universe directed wholly and solely against him. He thought he had nothing to be afraid of. Well, he became afraid. Certainly Indra, Chandra, all the demigods, they were no match for Hiranyakashipu. But it was not within his capacity to even imagine how powerful was Narasimhadev. It's a common mistake to consider that Vishnu is just like one of the devas, just the same. But Hiranyakashipu can testify that there's a big difference between Vishnu and the other devatas. Hiranyakashipu can subdue the other devatas, but he's no match for Narasimhadev. So Hiranyakashipu had an intense desire to dominate the universe. He was an extremely intense person. He came in contact with the intense anger of Narasimhadev. And although Hiranyakashipu thought that he would never again know fear, he experienced a fear, an intense fear, which we can hardly imagine. Of course, we have to understand this is the Leela of the Supreme Lord. He also desires to fight. He is the Supreme Person, which means he's very powerful. So powerful people, they like to fight sometimes. They have a lot of strength and they want to use that sometimes. So the Supreme Lord, he also likes to fight. But who will fight with him? You can go to the gym and do some exercises and build up your body, but not nearly strong enough to fight with the Supreme Lord. You can be a karate black belt, but that won't help you to fight the Supreme Lord. Indra and Chandra, they were dominated by Hiranyakashipu. So how powerful was Hiranyakashipu? So actually the Supreme Lord, he's much more powerful than Hiranyakashipu, but he got some pleasure from going through a drama or a leela of fighting with Hiranyakashipu. So in this way the Supreme Lord got some pleasure from fighting. Bhakti means to give pleasure to the Supreme Lord. So in fighting with Narasimha, was Hiranyakashipu doing bhakti? If you tell Hiranyakashipu that you have to do, now you're doing Vishnu bhakti, then he won't agree. By fighting with the Supreme Lord, Hiranyakashipu gave the Supreme Lord pleasure, but that was not bhakti, because the attitude of Hiranyakashipu toward the Supreme Lord was one of dvesha, or bad feeling. On the other hand, we find in Krishna Lila that Krishna became angry at someone else. He became angry at Yashoda when she left him in Damodar Lila. She went to take the milk off the stove, and Krishna became angry. So Krishna was pleased to fight with Hiranyakashipu, but he was not pleased with Mother Yashoda when she put him aside to go and take the milk off the stove. So even though Yashoda Mai, she superficially displeased Krishna, that was bhakti. So Hiranyakashipu displeased Bhagavan Narayana, Nrsimhadev, but that was not bhakti. He pleased him by fighting, but that was not bhakti. Because basically Nrsimha was very displeased with Hiranyakashipu for Hiranyakashipu's having mistreated Prahlad, who was a devotee of Krishna. And Yashoda Mai, she always pleased Krishna by loving him intensely, and then even her apparent displeasing Krishna, but Krishna is always, the underlying feeling is one of tremendous love for her, just as she loves him. So remembering how Nrsimha protects his devotees, the devotees attempt to remember Nrsimha. They know that if we are sincere in our service to him, certainly Krishna will protect us. So devotees are fearless in as much as they're not afraid of losing anything, because they feel, all I have is Krishna, and I can't lose Krishna because I have an eternal relationship with Krishna. Everyone in this material world is afraid. They're afraid of death, but a devotee is not afraid of death because he thinks that, well, it's just changing the body and I'll go on and serve Krishna in the next situation. People are afraid of losing their possessions, but a devotee thinks, well, I don't own anything, I came into this world with nothing, whatever I have is given by Krishna, I can't take anything with me. Devotees are not afraid of suffering because they think that, well, if I suffer, I must have done something bad in the past, so I have to suffer that. Of course, this is an advanced stage of bhakti. It's not so easy to come to that stage immediately. Certainly Prahlad was on that level. He wasn't afraid. Hiranyakashipu tried to kill Prahlad in so many ways, but Prahlad simply wasn't afraid. Later, when Nrsimha appeared, Prahlad prayed to Nrsimha, and he said, I am afraid, but I'm afraid of material existence. So devotees, they have one kind of fear. They're afraid of falling into Maya. They're afraid of being entangled in a materialistic way of thinking by which they forget Krishna. So it's good for devotees to be afraid of Maya. We shouldn't think that, well, I'm free from Maya. If we think like that, we're in trouble. Okay, I'll finish that. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. All glories to Nrsimhadev. All glories to Prahlad Maharaj. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.